Mr. Chairman, I will be speaking about how MSE has taken steps and will continue to secure our food sources and water supply, and how we intend to do this with the support of our industry, as well as with every Singaporean. First, on food security, Minister Grace mentioned earlier that climate change and pandemics such as COVID-19 are some of the biggest threats we face today. Coupled with the war in Ukraine, the confluence of factors is causing global supply and price volatility, and we can expect to feel the impact in the coming months. MSC plans to ensure food supply resilience through our 3 food baskets: diversify import sources, grow local, and grow overseas. Our Grow Local basket is supported by our 30 by 30 goal, an ambition to expand our capability to grow more food locally in a sustainable and resource-efficient manner. Last year, I shared about how our intention to master plan Lim Chu Kang, then turn it into a high-tech agri-food zone that can significantly raise food production and thereby also providing new and exciting job opportunities for Singaporeans. I'm glad to update Mr. Don Wee and Professor Koh Lian Pin that in 2021, we completed a 6-month-long series of engagements on how the government, the industry, including our farmers, nature groups, and public can co-create the future Lim Chu Kang region. Many industry players and other stakeholders are keen to embrace high-tech farming, with also other ideas like shared processing and distribution facilities and centralized waste management systems for complementary users, which will enhance the entire farming ecosystem. The feedback and the ideas that we receive from the engagements will now be folded into our actual planning phase of the Lim Chu Kang this year. We have also been driving research innovation and plugging existing technological gaps. Under the Singapore Food Story R&D program, we set aside up to 144 million Singapore dollars for R&D for sustainable urban food production, future foods such as the advanced biotech-based protein production, as well as food safety science and innovation. To date, around $75 million has been committed to over 30 projects. I echo Dr. Lim Wee Kiak's point that alternative proteins such as cell-based and plant-based meats can contribute to our nutritional needs. As some alternative proteins do not have a long history or history of use as food, it is important to ensure the safe introduction of such novel food products into Singapore's market. This is why SFA developed the Novel Food Regulatory Framework in 2019, which requires companies to undertake pre-market food safety assessment as part of the process of seeking approval from SFA. I encourage novel food companies to engage SFA early through platforms such as SFA's Novel Food Virtual Clinics to better understand SFA's requirements so that they can prioritize their research efforts. Now let me move on to our aquaculture industry. Mr. Chairman, fish is a commonly consumed source of protein that can be grown locally to contribute to our food security. To Ms. Nadia Samdin's question, SFA has been working closely with the industry over the past year to understand their needs and introduce best practices that can help them uplift their production and the sector. I've joined them in some of these engagements and visited many of the farms in the Johor Straits as well as in the southern waters. The sea-based fish farms in Singapore are indeed quite varied, each with a unique approach to farming. Some, like Rong Yao Fisheries, culture their fish in traditional open net cage systems. With good farm management practice in place, Rong Yao Fisheries had obtained the Good Aquaculture Practice fish farming certification. We have also seen the emergence of high-tech farms which have the potential to transform fish farming by culturing fish intensively. The EcoArc by Aquaculture Center of Excellence is one of the world's first purpose-built floating close containment aquaculture production structure that combines offshore and marine technology with a close containment system, using water treatment technology to provide good quality seawater to culture the fish and at the same time reduce the vulnerability to external conditions. Farms like Rong Yao and ACE EcoArc have found farming methods that work for them, but they also share their hopes of getting greater certainty on their use of sea space so that they can continue to invest in their future. Today, Sea-based farms do not have a lease mechanism, and this creates some uncertainty for our farms. So, we will offer leases to all sea-based farms in the longer term. Incumbent farms will be eased into this arrangement by starting with yearly renewable temporary occupation license, or TOL, from 1st January 2023. The charges will be progressively stepped up to market rate from 2023 to 2026. This will give farms sufficient lead time to consider the longer-term investment decisions. I also mentioned in my speech last year that SFA plans to launch new sea space tenders on lease. I'm glad to share that this will happen from the end of 2022. Sea-based farms will see a reduction in their annual license fee from 1st January 2023. SFA has reviewed the fish farm license fees to ensure that it remains relevant and that compliance costs for the industry are minimized. Only new farm applications and farms with major changes to their farming activities, such as change in food type, that they want to produce will be subject to a separate one-off assessment fee due to higher manpower and equipment costs incurred during the course of the assessment. More details will be announced in the coming months. Now, to address Ms. Nadia Samdin, Mr. Koh Lian Pin, and Mr. Raj Joshua Thomas' queries, we want to provide greater certainty for our farmers so that they will invest more into their farms. I'm happy to announce that new land and sea parcels will benefit from longer-term leases of 20 plus 10 years. This means that future tenders will offer farmers the option of extending their lease beyond the initial 20-year period for an additional 10 years, subject to farm meeting SFA's production output conditions. This will apply to new land parcels in Sungai Tengah as well as in Lim Chu Kang after the master planning exercise, as well as sea spaces that I mentioned earlier from end 2022 onwards. More details will again be announced by SFA when the tenders are launched. Mr. Donwy and Mr. Raj Joshua Thomas asked how we are helping farmers to upgrade their operations and reach our 30 by 30 goal. Last year, I shared that SFA launched a 60 million Agri-Food Cluster Transformation Fund, or ACT. This ACT fund supports farmers' needs in different aspects at different phases. For example, from capability upgrade, innovation and test bedding, as well as tech upscaling. SFA has received a total of 32 applications as of end of last year, and 8 applications has already been approved, while the rest are being processed and evaluated. Going forward, we will also expand the scope of ACT fund to allow more food types that are commonly consumed in Singapore to also benefit from higher co-funding quantum. This includes fruited vegetables, mushrooms, and shrimps. More farms can now benefit from the higher co-funding support to invest in their farming solutions. Mr. Koh Lian Pin asked if the government plans to calibrate our food imports as we increase local food production in order to minimize waste. Even as we aim to produce more food locally, Singapore will continue to need to import most of our food. We remain committed to facilitating free, open, and competitive trade, and any substitution between imports and local production will be a result of market forces. While local farms ramp up production to contribute to our 30 by 30 goal, it is critical that Singaporeans continue to play their part by supporting local produce. Strengthening Singapore's food security is a whole-of-nation effort, and without strong local demand, our farmers will find it hard to sustain a high level of production. With your permission, Mr. Chairman, may I display a slide on the LCD screens?
Please proceed.
To help Singaporeans better identify local produce, SFA launched a set of 3 logos to integrate branding for local produce in February 2022. These are the updated SG Fresh logo you see on the screen to identify, first of all, local farmers. You see the first one on the left with 1 star, and logos to differentiate farms certified under the Good Agriculture Practice Scheme for Quality Assurance, and they get 2 stars at the bottom, and Clean and Green Scheme for Sustainable Production, which is a 3-star logo. By choosing local produce, everyone can contribute to our food security. Whether you're buying groceries for your family, for your restaurant, or choosing local produce, will support our local farmers, helping them not just to survive, but to flourish by becoming more productive and sustainable. So please let me remind everybody to try and support our local produce. Mr. Chairman, in Mandarin, please. 主席，为了进一步保障我国的食品供应，新加坡食品局在2019年定下了30-30愿景，希望到了2030年，本地生产的农产品可以满足国人30%的食品需求。目前，海上养殖业者需要每年更新海域的使用期限，因此难以吸引到需要大量前期投资的养殖企业。政府在检讨了海域使用期政策之后，很高兴地宣布，我们将为所有海上养殖场制定长期租约，以便更有效地吸引投资者，发展本地的海上养殖业。为了帮助现有的养殖场过渡这个新的机制，我们将从2023年1月1日起，先签发每年可续期的临时使用准证，给养殖业者有充裕的时间做出长期投资的决定。此外，新加坡食品局也将从今年年底开始推出新的海上养殖区供业者投标租用。食品局也将从明年1月1日起调低海上养殖场的执照费，以确保收费更合时宜。我们将在接下来几个月公布更多的详情。要实现30-30愿景，除了政府的推动和资助，我们也希望国人能够以行动来支持本地农产品。食品局在今年2月重新推介3种标签，帮助国人更清楚地识别本地出产的农产品。希望大家能够多多支持而购买本地栽种和养殖的新鲜食品，齐心协力，迈向更有保障的未来。Mr. Chairman, I would now like to speak about our other basic need, which is water. We will continue to strengthen water security by developing weather-resilient sources like new water and desalinated water. And I'm happy to announce that Singapore's latest plant, Jurong Island Desalination Plant, will be operational in April 2022. This plant is co-located with Tuas Power's existing Tembusu Multi-Utilities Complex, or TMUC. It taps on the cost and operational synergies in the water energy nexus by sharing infrastructure such as the seawater intake and the substation with the TMUC. As pointed out by Ms. Cheryl Chan and Mr. Gan Tiampo and Ms. Polisan, weather-resilient sources are energy-intensive. And since 2002, PUB and stakeholders have committed more than $800 million in R&D into technologies such as biomimetic membranes and blue energy to improve energy efficiency of new water and desalination processes. The energy to produce 1 cubic meter of desalinated water could potentially be reduced from 3.5 kilowatt hour to less than 2 kilowatt hours by 2025. In 2020, we announced that work has already begun on Tuas Nexus, Singapore's first integrated solid waste and used water treatment facility, comprising NEA's Integrated Waste Management Facility, IWMF, and PUB's Tuas Water Reclamation Plant, TWRP. Mr. Sean Huang asked about the Tuas Nexus project and the update. To date, more than $4 billion worth of contract works have already been awarded by NEA and PUB. And the Tuas Nexus is set to complete in phases from 2025. The electricity generated by IWMF will be sufficient to sustain the operations of Tuas Nexus, and excess electricity will be exported to the national grid. When fully operational, the excess electricity exported to the grid by IWMF will be able to power up to 300,000 four-room HDB flats. And this is just the beginning. We will continue to explore such synergies across various infrastructure facilities across the government. Mr. Chairman, the deep tunnel sewerage system will transform the way Singapore transports our used water. This is essential in the land-scarce Singapore, and when completed, will result in a 50% reduction in the land take for used water infrastructure. This is a multi-year project, $6.5 billion project that showcases our commitment towards forward planning. I'm glad to update Mr. Sito Ipin that Phase 2 tunnel contracts, which began in 2017, more than 80% of the tunneling works have already been completed. and the overall project, including Tuas Water Reclamation Plant, is scheduled to be ready by 2026. Mr. Chairman, Singapore's water story has been a success not just because of our infrastructural achievements, but through fostering community stewardship among Singaporeans towards our water resources. For example, we have transformed our water bodies into recreational sites for all to enjoy and protect under the Active, Beautiful, Clean Waters, or ABC Waters program. I'm pleased to update Mr. Gan Thiam Poh that 50 ABC Waters projects have already been completed since it was launched in 2006, and 7 more will be completed over the next 2 years. Beyond our local waterways, we are also inspiring collective action to safeguard our marine environment from the threats posed by marine litter. I am pleased to update Ms. Nadia Samdin that the government is on track to publish Singapore's first National Action Strategy on marine litter in June 2022. The strategy will describe Singapore's comprehensive approach to address the sources of marine litter. Ahead of the launch, we organized a public engagement session to seek feedback on measures to address marine litter and to galvanize 3P efforts to improve the situation in Singapore. Ms. Cheryl Chan and Ms. Henny So asked how we can improve water conservation. The COVID-19 pandemic saw water consumption shift from the non-domestic to the domestic sector. In 2021, non-domestic water consumption fell by 6%, while domestic consumption increased by 6% compared to the pre-COVID period. In per capita terms, household water consumption increased from 141 litres per day in 2019 to 158 litres per day in 2021. This was largely due to more time spent at home because of work from home and home-based learning arrangements, as well as more frequent hand washing, showering, and cleaning by household to maintain a higher standard of hygiene, as what Ms. Chan and Ms. So have pointed out. PUB will support households to make informed choices and raise awareness on water consumption at home. For example, through the Smart Water Meter program, PUB has commenced the rollout of the first phase in Tampines Central in January 2022 and will be installing some 300,000 smart water meters in new and existing residential, commercial, and industrial premises, target to complete by the year 2023. Water conservation starts with every Singaporean. I hope every individual can play their part to save water and to ensure that our water supply continues to be sustainable. I also want to thank Mr. Murali for his suggestion to plug the existing gaps of enforcing foreign vehicle that has a high idling engine. There are practical challenges, but I want to assure Mr. Murali that we will be studying into this proposal. Mr. Chairman, I thank members for your support for the work done by MSE, PUB, and SFA to ensure food security and water sustainability, and ask that you continue to help us to build a sustainable, resilient, livable, and vibrant Singapore. Thank you.